Good morning, everyone. It's Jen Tozser here, your portfolio manager. Season 1, Episode 2. Today I wanted to talk about the price of oil and some things that have come to light recently. So I posted on my LinkedIn an interview that Louis Vachon, who is our CEO for National Bank, had given. And what he was talking about is how North America needs to really address the instability that's come in the oil prices and how that instability has translated into economic instability. And I think that's really, a great message because, for one, it's not coming from Alberta again. But number two, it does recognize that the oil and gas industry or the energy industry is really an integral part of not just Canada, but all of North America. And what I'm specifically talking about is the low, depressed energy prices we have right now because of the increased production from Saudi and Russia combined with the lack of, or the decreased demand because we've all been told to stay at home from COVID. Now, I do think there's some precedents for this before, for having these tariffs, whether you call them environmental tariffs or price stability tariffs. It makes me think of the 1980s and of the Japanese tire dumping scandal. So dumping is an economic term that means one country is supplying another country with a product below its cost with the intent of putting, in this case, Canada's tire industry out of business. So it was exposed, there were fines paid, and at the end of the day, we still have a North American tire industry. So why this makes me think of what's happening right now in Saudi and why we need a North American policy is because these current prices are artificially low. They can't keep them there. And the North American energy industry is getting decimated by it. Only the companies that have got futures contracts or the companies that have very strong balance sheets could survive this for a long period of time. And oil or energy is still a 12% contributor in Canada to GDP. You don't just want to wipe that off your income statement. So there's also a big difference now between now and 5 years ago about getting something like this done. And what's different is that 5 years ago or 6 years ago, if you were an American and you had to choose between cheap oil from Saudi or $10 or $20 more expensive oil from Canada, you'd pick the cheap oil because what did you care? But now they care. Right? Over the last 5 years, the U.S. has gone from being our biggest client to our biggest competitor because they've got their own production. So they don't want their bottom line, or that energy line wiped off their income statement either. So it makes a lot more sense to actually have some type of program. And it needs to be a North American program because if it's not, what could happen is that the Saudis or Venezuela could continue to import their oil to Eastern Canada like they are today, and that leaves them a gateway to sell cheap Saudi oil down to the U.S. through Canada. So they've got to close that off. Now, the next thing I get asked is, well, what about, is that going to bring a boom back to the oil industry in Canada? And I don't think it will bring back a boom. What it's going to do is going to definitely, hopefully, get us out of these current depressed levels because price stability gives people confidence. That's good for everybody in the industry. Hopefully that will decrease the large differential we've been taking in Canada as we send our products down to Cushing. But the reason I don't think it will be the boom like we had between, call it 97 and 2006, is because we'll have the same problems, or, well, 2006, well, you could even go as far as 2014 if you wanted, but we are going to have the same problems now that we had then, which was that we don't have enough pipeline capacity if we do increase our production significantly. And we only have one customer, who is the U.S., because we don't have easy access to any of our ports on the East Coast or the West Coast for increased production. So this is not a perfect solution, but it's a great start to bringing back stability to the North American oil market. And the other things the Saudis did this time, which I think if you're worried about the election, you think this is just a pro-American, pro-Trump thing, is that in the past, the Saudis have given the impression that they have been trying to work with the U.S. to create price stability and economic stability. But this time, what did they do? They kicked them when they were down. They were down because of COVID. So they took a situation where oil demand had already fallen off, albeit temporarily, and then they dropped their prices. So they've definitely drawn a line, and we know which side they're on. So again, I think that's positive in the sense of getting a response from North America. So there's my comments on the energy industry for today, and I hope you all have a great weekend.